Every night at the stroke of 12, when the moon hung like a silver sickle in the inky black sky, the villagers of Dark Creek would lock up their homes and huddle inside with their families, praying they would survive the night. They lived in constant fear of the ghosts that haunted their town. It all started years ago when a stranger had stumbled into Dark Creek. He was a gaunt, shadowy man with eyes that seemed to hold the secrets of the universe. The townspeople, desperate for answers about their haunting, turned to the stranger, who introduced himself only as Elias. He told them he could help, but it would require a great sacrifice. They agreed to his terms without hesitation, believing it was their only hope. Elias led them in a ritual that lasted all night, and when the sun finally peeked over the horizon, the ghost was gone. Their town was free, but this freedom came at a terrible price. The ghost was the anchor of their town. Without it, Dark Creek began to fall apart. Crops withered, animals fell ill, and children disappeared. They begged Elias to bring the ghost back, but he only shook his head. He told them he couldn't undo what had been done, but he could help them find the ghost and make amends. Decades passed, and Dark Creek became a shadow of its former self. Their pleas for mercy went unanswered until one day a young woman named Aisha arrived in town. She was a city girl with dreams bigger than her small town, and she wasn't afraid of ghosts. When she heard their story, she laughed and told them she'd bring the ghost back herself. Aisha and her friends walked out of town, heading straight for the abandoned house where the ghost was said to reside. The villagers watched them leave, their faces etched with worry. They knew what awaited her, but they also knew that their fate was now in Aiji's hands. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the land, Ajisha and her friends reached the dilapidated house. It stood like a rotting tooth against the darkening sky, and a shiver ran down Aisha's spine. Her friends, however, were in high spirits. They ran around the house, their laughter echoing in the twilight, daring each other to touch the crumbling walls. Meanwhile, Ashia stood by the window, her gaze fixed on the swirling darkness outside. She could feel the presence of the ghost even from here, a cold spot in the air, a whisper in the wind. But she wasn't scared. She was determined. She was going to see this ghost and bring it back to Dark Creek, whether it wanted to or not. Suddenly, the wind picked up, and she could hear the ghost moving just outside the window. One of her friends screamed and hid behind Aisha, but she remained rooted to the spot, her eyes fixed on the window. The ghost was almost upon them, and she could see its shape taking form in the darkness. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, it vanished. Aisha felt a sudden surge of confidence. She was ready to face the ghost, to bring it back to the village, and end their decades of suffering. With a deep breath, she stepped out into the night, her friends following closely behind. The moment they stepped outside, a bone-chilling wind slammed against them, nearly knocking them off their feet. The temperature dropped in an instant, and the sky rumbled with distant thunder. Aisha could feel the presence of the ghost all around her now, like a physical force pressing down on her chest, making it hard to breathe. And then she heard a voice, deep and resonant, echoing in the darkness. "You shouldn't be here." Aisha froze. She turned slowly to face the voice, and that's when she saw it. Standing before her, silhouetted against the flashes of lightning, was a tall, imposing figure. Its eyes glowed with an eerie light, and its face was obscured by the shadows of its hood. Aisha took a step back, her heart pounding in her chest. The ghost raised its head, and in that instant, Aisha saw everything. She saw the pain and sorrow in its eyes, the anger and resentment that radiated from its very being. She saw the truth. In that abandoned house, the ghost wasn't malevolent. It was tormented, trapped between this world and the next. And Aisha realized that it wasn't a curse, but a cry for help. With newfound understanding, Aisha reached out a hand towards the ghost. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice trembling. "We're sorry." The ghost hesitated, its eyes flickering with surprise, and then it did the most unexpected thing. It reached out a hand and touched hers.